not be a Sunday brunch without the SIP crew. These are the women who help us cut through the noise and get to what really matters: the organizers, the litigators, the strategists. We are stepping into 2026 with real stakes on the table. Civil rights are under pressure. State legislatures are moving fast. The State of the Union is around the corner, and Black women remain the backbone of our civic engagement, while too often being left out of the political analysis. So this conversation is not surface level. We are reflecting on the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson, a coalition builder, helped to define what modern day politics look like. We are going to be talking about what's unfolding right now and what advocates are preparing to do and what you need to know. Who are joining us? 95% of the SIP crew. Fatima Goss Graves, fighting for gender justice and economic security. Judith Browne Dianis, our fighting lawyer at the front lines of voting rights and civil rights. And well, Adrianne Shropshire, one of the sharpest political strategists building Black political power across this country. Ladies, can you believe that it's been March 11th was our first SIP conversation that we had in 2020 during the global pandemic when it first started. And here we gather, minus one of our girls, for an important conversation. I must say, starting this week out with you brought me joy. Our pre-show and production meeting brought me joy. So thank you for joining us. I would say same crew, Fatima, with a better background. Uh, Not the pandemic, because I'm out in these streets at a hotel, so my Wi-Fi is horrible. Judith does not have a SIP. Adrian doesn't have a SIP. And you can hear my list because I've got Invisaligns on that I'm about to take out so I can have this conversation. I can yell at me later. But I'm on week 2 of trying to have a better me. So how are you ladies?
I can't believe it's been 6 years. That's the sort of sitting with me. You know, whole children have grown up in that period. You know, lots of life has happened. Jobs have changed, Judith. There's been a lot. And still, some of it feels very familiar. Because in 2020, of spring 2020, there was one person dominating the conversation as we were heading into that global pandemic. And so it is wild, but I'm glad to be with you ladies.
I know, it's nice. I'm still in the same room, having the same problems with the sun, but I love the sun. I can't believe it. I mean, like, I think about it, like, yes, jobs change. I've left Advancement Project. And my daughter graduated from college. And, you know, it's like, it's just crazy. But, you know, we've all continued to do the work from whatever perch we're on, and continue to have really good chat threads that are about all the things, including some things we're going to talk about today.
So I feel like I don't feel like I'm 6 years older. That's the one thing I do. Time has not passed for me. But I know both of our daughters graduated from college. We got a master's degree,
A graduate
right?
degree, right?
Exactly. But we are all still here. That's what I know.
Yeah.
In the face of all that we are confronting, we are all still here, still doing the work. And so I appreciate you all and the time off the chat, the group chat, to be face to face with you all once again. Moved across country, no longer.
Yeah, that too. Wow.
Yeah. I used to do the show in a corner of my house, hiding from my children who would be running around.
Yep.
That's why I sometimes didn't have the best of backgrounds. I've leveled. I have leveled.
You have. You have. We're proud of you. We are proud of you. We were all gonna chip in and get you something, but we didn't have to. That's good.
So this week,
It's rough out
higher
here.
heights and so many black leaders from across this country, including the three of you, reflected on the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson. It was a great article by Aaron Haynes from the 19th talking about how Jesse Jackson opened the doors and co-led and engaged and conspired with black women. And black women have continued to build our power beyond just the symbolic roles that we have seen in historic civil rights. Can y'all all share a little bit about the history and the legacy of Reverend Jackson?
I'll maybe start. I mean, I think that one of the things that we often do is we forget sometimes about the depth of impact of our leaders. And the 19th article I thought was great because it talked about the way in which he brought Black women into kind of the Democratic Party um, process and leadership, right? And that felt really important when we think about who Leah and Donna and Mignon, and the role that they play in mentoring other Black women today in our politics. But for me, I think the thing that was, as I was reflecting, was both that it wasn't just that he brought individuals, into leadership, but it really changed the way I think that Black folks saw themselves in relationship to the Democratic Party in general. And we often think about Obama and, Obama inspiring people to run for office. And we talk about that moment when lots of people started running for office after Obama's two campaigns and his two terms. But we don't think about the impact that Jesse Jackson had on the electorate and making people feel like there was something in it for them, but also the number of people that were running for office. Like the Congress, Black members of Congress look very different in 1984 and
Mhm.
1988 than it does right now. And so I think that, just he really, the impact was deep and large, and obviously longevity and the legacy of it all, I think we sometimes lose sight of. And hopefully this will give us a chance to both think about his impact, but also the legacies that we're all trying to leave.
Yeah, the only other thing I want to add to that, because that was so beautifully put, is I think about his later legacy of really pushing with authority the business community to think about how it understood that its consumer base was Black folks. So it had to do something different in terms of its hiring, its contracting. And he was about it in a lot of quiet ways that I think people didn't know, but he also was very willing to be out there and clear and name things that a lot of Black
Mhm.
leadership at the time weren't naming about what real equity looked like. And in this period of time that we are in, where it feels like the upside down in terms of our civil rights protections and diversity and equity in across every space, remembering his legacy and his drive, unapologetic at a time where it wasn't as popular, right? So how do we do unpopular things in real time that we know are right and will help people? And so that is such a special part of his legacy. I also just want to say I was remembering as a kid when he came to my church in Oakland and spoke in our church. And it must have been in the 84 campaign. And I remember my parents and my mother in particular saying, well, he might just be president. He might just be president. And that idea that why not me is a thing that I've has guided me in a bunch of different ways over time. Why not you? You may not have seen it before, but why not you?
So, as the elder in the crowd, which I hate to freaking admit, I got to vote for him twice. My very first time voting was when he ran in '84. And the thing that I remember is that being like a college student and having someone who was calling us in, right, in ways that we hadn't heard from electeds before, who spoke to like every demographic, whether it was Black people or Asian people, Native Americans, and calling out colonialism, speaking to issues around poverty, which politicians even today don't talk about. They talk about the middle class, but nobody talks about poor folks, right? And the way in which he made us think about what was possible. And what he was really talking about is something that we today now call a multiracial democracy, right? Like that's what he was building and what he was bringing us into. I also had the opportunity to like see him. He came to speak at Penn when I was a student. We had a Black student convention at Penn, and he came and spoke. And just the inspiration and the hearing from someone, we needed the words of someone telling us that we were worthy, right? When you're at a predominantly white institution while we're fighting apartheid, et cetera, to have somebody reminding you that you belong there, right, was incredibly important. And then lastly, I would just say he was also a catalyst on issues, right? Because when I think back to like the start of Zero Tolerance, he called us at Advancement Project. We had just started the organization and was telling us about an issue and was like, what is this thing? What is happening to these young people? What is zero tolerance? And that started our work around the school to prison pipeline. And he was standing up for young people on this issue that we hadn't even like really identified and recognized yet. And so he was a catalyst on many issues. And I just hope that younger people, even though he is gone, get to know him.
Can I add one more thing? I think Judith on that he was a catalyst. I pulled up his 88 platform the other day, and was looking at the sort of core tenets of the platform. And let me just say that there's a bunch of people out here talking about they're more progressive than the next progressive, who are literally living off of Jesse Jackson's 88 platform,
Yeah.
right? Everything from universal health care to reparations, right, to, the ERA. Like, if you look at that 88 platform, it looks into, investing in infrastructure so that everyone across the country and all communities can have jobs. Sounds like something we passed maybe a couple of years ago. But it is such a, like, so not only a man before his time, but the people have incorporated that into, what we now look at as the progressive policy agenda. And this was 1988. And so both we, have a long way to go to get some of those things done. But people need to give credit where credit is due, when they're out there campaigning with flags. Yeah.
This is very 2020 of you.
It might be 2026, but we're still having 2020 problem. Everything about this is 2020. I was like, what is that like ghostly thing? So I would say for me, what I loved about that 19th article, and we'll drop it into the chat, was also just talking about the generation of Black women political leaders that you can directly point to because they worked with him, right? The Color Girls. But he also inspired a generation of political leaders and Black women. I was so mad because I was like, I got
Yeah.
pictures of Jesse Jackson. I don't have them with me because I'm traveling this week as everybody was dropping their photos. But what reminded me is, and I'm headed back to my childhood home this weekend, is I have this vintage 60s green hardcover suitcase that has all my like memory. Like I have my teddy bear that my uncle Dean gave me, and but what's in it, I was like probably some inappropriately, I realized I'm like, I think I have some love letters from like a college, like high school college
Keep hope
boat.
alive.
Like, why do I still have that? But whatever. I have a thank you letter from Jesse Jackson. All right. I whatever. As the single girl on the SIP, FYI. Yes, keep hope alive. Thank you, Reverend Jackson. Is a thank you letter from him. My first paid internship my father got. I don't often talk about my father, but he was a community organizer, and he got me my internship between my
Oh,
senior of
wow.
high school and my freshman year in college at 1199 SEIU, Connecticut. And they were
Yes.
preparing I couldn't remember at one point, he did some walk across America, if you remember that, in 91. I couldn't remember what it was. And it was so poignant at the time that as we're figuring out the conversation we're going to have today about Black women's role, he went on a selected city tour called Rebuild America. And I was an intern for the Connecticut leg of that tour, because Bridgeport, Connecticut and Hartford, Connecticut, which is my home city, was one of the two of the most impoverished cities in the country at that time. And I would beg to say probably are still, in the top 10 impoverished cities of the country. And that is not realizing, but looking back, he was the beginning of my like adult organizing framework. So rest in peace, Reverend Jackson. You have created more than one generation, but multiple generations of leaders that carry the torch. Black women have been the architects. We're currently the defenders. And in that letter that I will get to read this week, we are the rebuilders of the America that will center Black communities and Black women. So thank you, Jesse Jackson. So that being said, to our three fearless democracy defenders, State of the Union this week, Fatima.
Yeah, it is coming up, State of the Union. And, the first line of the State of the Union, after they say Mr. Speaker or whatever, it is the State of the Union is strong. Like some version of that is how almost every president kicks it off. And so we fully expect that this president will say the State of the Union is the best, the most miraculous, strongest. And
He's huger. And
he's huger and bigger
and bigly.
Right. So he'll have his spin. But actually, when we look at the fundamentals around like what does it mean for the State of the Union to actually be strong, we're in trouble. We're in trouble on so many core indicators right now, whether it is on some of the most fundamental economic indicators, all of the data that has come out for 2025, that if, at the Law Center, we track each month when the job numbers come out, if they come out, that's been a thing this year, we track and look at who has got jobs, who did not get jobs, and who is looking and striving and can't find them. And we ended 2025 with an unemployment rate for Black women that was higher than unemployment ever got for white women in the height of the pandemic. So when we go back to, you remember the period of time where people were like, where are all the women going at work? And we're urgently trying to fix the problem. That's where Black women's unemployment rate is today. And so oftentimes what's happening with Black women is a warning sign, not just for Black people. It is a warning sign around the health of our economy and really for this country. And if you were serious about the State of the Union being economically strong, you would look at those numbers and say, oh my goodness. But I have a feeling that's not the story we're going to hear. And so part of our task, when you have the facts and the data at hand, like you do with something like jobs numbers, is reminding a different story. And I can tell you that in part because I think that's going to be their lead. They're going to try to say, it doesn't matter if we've been terrorizing families around the country without warrants, and it doesn't matter that we murdered someone in the street on camera, and it doesn't matter that we have engaged in illegal executive orders so that organizations like mine and like Judith's old organization have to do things like sue you to do the basics. They're going to say, I believe, it doesn't matter because economically we're fine. And I think it's really important that we deal with facts in that conversation.
Yeah,
so tune in Tuesday.
I think it's all right, and it's going to be chock full of lies. Especially around issues around immigration, because we're going to be told that they're doing such a great job, and that they're reaching their quotas, that they are getting the criminals out, that they are taking away the imports of drugs from other countries and getting rid of the criminals, right? When we all know that they are going after everybody, right? And that racial profiling is being used, etc. But they're going to tell this story that they have to tell to their constituents about how this was one of his key policy issues and that he is advancing the needle on that. And he's also going to say, that he hates the Supreme Court because they gave him a little bit of a loss on tariffs, and he's figuring out other ways to get around it. And the justices, or maybe not all of them, but some of them will be there, and he's going to tell them that they're bad and that he called them fools today. So in the decision he called them fools. So we'll see how that goes.
I mean, I just expect, as everyone should, and I think this is what you were saying, Fatima, is that it's more political theater, right? It's more reality TV, staging. And just like everything else they do on any of the other issues that, like the ones that you have talked about, and Judith talks about immigration and, armed masked agents running up in cities and terrorizing people and shooting them in the face and shooting them in the back. And then taking selfies, right? Like going when ICE was here in LA, they would literally stage opportunities for them to take selfies and take photos and do whole photo shoots, right? We've seen the Secretary of Homeland Security doing that, right? So it's just all about creating a reality that doesn't actually exist. And fortunately, the reality is that most of America, including many people who voted for him, are not buying into that reality anymore. They got to go to the grocery store like everybody else. They got to pay rent and mortgages like everybody else. And that reality is not adding up. And so they'll try and use the State of the Union to recreate the reality that they want for people to see, for people to understand. I think he's going to be completely unhinged at the presence of the Supreme Court justices. I don't think he will be able to stay on script. I think he will completely lose it and melt down unless they hand him something. Fatima, I don't know when the next dates are that they're going to release. I don't know if they're releasing anything before Monday, but like, I think he just is unable to contain himself. And that will be important for the American people to see.
Well, we are waiting on some pretty big cases, including the
Voting rights
case,
case.
but I don't know if that's coming before
That better not
the
come
State
out.
of the
Look,
Union.
that better not come out on Monday.
I can't hear
Can't
Glynda.
hear you.
I quit.
You're doing all the 2020 things.
I, if you decide that you don't want to watch the State of the Union in real time, if you watch some of the alternative programming that is happening, the State of the People tour will be having some commentary around the State of the Union. Roland Martin. There's a variety of outlets. There's ways to watch counter programming. But if you're not, find safe, trusted
Yeah.
spaces, safe, trusted voices like Judith Browne Dianis, Fatima Goss Graves, and Adrianne Shropshire, because we need to be informed as we continue to build a pathway forward as leaders, but more importantly, for us to be able to be in real time conversation with our communities and our families around of ever changing landscape of not only this politic of a democracy that we're living in, but the ability for us to thrive and strive as actually citizens of the United States. So we're going to spend a little more time this afternoon talking about things. The reason why Adrian's really joining Sunday Brunch, some of our pop culture work. So look forward to having that conversation with y'all about what you're watching and what you're thinking.